Pastor Ed here with Daily Devotions for Wednesday, June the 21st, 2021. We continue once again our story of Abraham. We saw last week in the first 9 verses of Genesis 12, particularly in the first couple of verses, that God sent him to this new land, the land of Canaan, which was come to be known as the Promised Land, that he would be a great nation would come of him. He would be blessed. His name would be great so that he would also be a blessing. And then yesterday we were picking up the story in verse 10, where after all of that, all those travels, 1,100 miles, whatever it was, he finally gets to the Promised Land and there's a famine. And so Abram decides to go to Egypt. God's not sending him there. Abram kind of takes matters into his own hands. And today we're going to look at verses 11, 12, and 13, where we see that Abram really takes matters into his own hands. Beginning in verse 11. When he was about to enter Egypt, he said to his wife Sarai, "I know well that you are a woman beautiful in appearance. And when the Egyptians see you, they will say, 'This is his wife.' And then they will kill me, but they will let you live. Say you are my sister, so that it may go well with me because of you, and that my life may be spared on your account." We've been looking at what a couple of people have written about this, one being Devin Biles, who teaches at Southwest Baptist Theological Seminary down in Fort Worth, Texas. This idea that they will see you and kill me, but let you live. He comments that this is kind of a strange and selfish logic on Abram's part, and we would have to agree. The interesting thing, and he points this out, is that God has just made all these wonderful promises to him, that he'd be blessed, he'd become a great nation, and few verses later, he's afraid for his life. He's kind of forgotten A, everything that God said, and B, that God is God, and he should trust God. And so rather than trusting in God, what does Abram do? He kind of trusts in his own ability, his own cleverness, rather than trusting in God. So he was willing to compromise, and this is the really sad thing about it. He was willing to compromise his wife's integrity to do it. He was so self-centered, in other words, in that moment, as we'll see in the days to come, that he's kind of watching out for himself. And the irony, as Devin Biles points out, is that while this deception of saying that Sarai is his sister may in fact save Abram's life, it's going to place at risk the promise of God of offspring by endangering the very person, Sarai, through whom that promise would be realized, that she was going to give birth. And so this whole idea, say that you're my sister, I pointed out in my sermon on Sunday that there's a similar situation. Abram pulls this same trick once again a few chapters later with King Abimelech, but in that situation we find out that Sarai was in fact Abram's sister, half-sister. They share the same father but not the same mother. But again, this is that really doesn't make it any better, what Abram has decided to do here. A fellow by the name of David McLemore said that, asked the question, how did this happen? It's simple. Abram, he says, didn't deny God, he forgot God. When faced with the threat of Sarai's beauty and Pharaoh's kingdom, he didn't consider the promises of God. He took, again, matters into his own hands. He looked around and saw what was around him and forgot about the providence and protection of God, and how often we do that as well. Again, Sarai was apparently extremely beautiful, and he's assuming that when the Egyptians saw her, they would plan to eliminate Abram as their competition and take Sarai, and he would be in trouble. So he devised this plan, a clever one, to have Sarai say that she was his sister, And again, that was only half false because she was his half sister. But as Macklemore points out, if she's his wife, eliminating him is the simplest solution. But if she's his sister, they can't just get rid of him. They have to negotiate with him. And there's a whole kind of undercurrent here that Abram was playing off the well-known custom in ancient times when there's no father. The brother assumes legal guardianship of the sister, particularly with respect to obligations and responsibilities and arranging a marriage on her behalf. So whoever wished to take Sarai as his wife would have to negotiate with her brother. And so in this way, Abram is buying some time, in all probability trying some time to escape. So he wasn't necessarily, the problem is that he wasn't trusting God. He looked at the promises of God, or he really forgot the promises of God because he was looking at his own situation and decided that it was up to him to figure a way out. He had to save himself. And it's in effect as if he was saying, Macklemore says, that that God doesn't rule, that God doesn't exist, God doesn't control what happens, but maybe Abraham can, and so he tries to do that. So he gets a little bit clever. Started telling a story yesterday to try to relate it to this thing. I talked about having a class my senior year, not going to class, forgetting to drop it while I could still drop it. So, what do you do? If I drop the class, I get like an automatic F. After that date, I'm going to lose the money. So I thought I was clever. So I played football. I went to my football coach and I explained the situation and asked him if he could help out. And on my behalf, he did. He was in law school at the time. He became a lawyer. So that's kind of neither here nor there, although he was willing to negotiate on my behalf, and he negotiated me out of that class without any penalty. I was able to drop it, not lose the money, and not get the 0 grade or the F grade or whatever. I thought I was clever. I kind of took matters into my own hands. And it's a completely different situation, I realize, but I sense that I've been feeling the parallels between Abram trying to, be a little bit clever, and I was trying to be a little bit clever. Abram thought that was the solution to his problem. I thought having the coach fix it so I could drop the course without penalty, I thought that would fix it. We're going to find out in both cases, both in Abram's and in mine, it didn't quite work out that way. But I'll save that for tomorrow and the days to come. Hope you have a great day. Looking forward to continuing this story about Abraham with you tomorrow. Until then, take care. Bye.